This was led by Supervisor Frazier.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Allen, would you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Conover?
Here.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Ms. Bramer?
Here.
Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Hogan?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson?
Here.
Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Mr. Wild?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Present.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Shepler?
Here.
Mr. Garrity?
Here.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Present.
quorum is established.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 19th board meeting? Thank you, Supervisor Diamond, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That carries. Thank you. At this point in time, we're very excited to do the presentation of our Employee of the Month awards. If I could please have our administrator and our personnel chair meet me up front, that would be great. Don, can you get a picture for us, please, if you don't mind? That would be great. We are so excited to present the Employee of the Month this year to Don Lehman. We'll also talk a little bit about the logo.
I can't say enough words about Don Lehman, so it's more than a few. Don has been absolutely indispensable to me personally, to the county as a whole throughout the coronavirus pandemic. It was, we had no idea what we were getting into when Don started. His start sort of coincided with the start of the pandemic here. And ever since then, it's been, you know, a 12-hour day is a short day, and that goes for Don too, and that's 7 days a week. There was a period of time where I was up until 4:30, and that's about what time Don gets up in the morning. So the county administrator's office had 24/7 coverage for a while. If you look at the way not just the county government has responded, but the way the public in Warren County has responded, the level of information that they've had has played a huge role in that. You only need to look at our social media feeds to see that we have one of the most active presences out there from a public information perspective. And we have right now the 4th highest vaccination rate in the state. You have to have people wanting to get the vaccine and understanding how important it is to get the vaccine in order to get the vaccine. And the vaccine is what's going to get us out of this. And so much of our success is due to what Don has done. And I can't possibly thank you enough. Thank you, Don.
Super. Great job. Outstanding.
I just want to say that I followed your lead, and people like you and Janelle and people who have worked hours that the public just will never understand what has gone on the last year doing this. And I'm just following the lead of a lot of great people doing a lot of great work and chronicling what everyone here is doing. So, embarrassed by this. I don't think I've been here long enough. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, Don, listen, I've been on the Employee of the Month committee since we got started, and when your name came forward, we were all very excited to be able to honor you. It doesn't matter how long you've been here. You've worked tirelessly. You've been there for all of us, and I appreciate you personally. But really, I wanted to give this award to your wife for the awesome vaccine logo that she made.
That's a
Don's
piece,
wife made this.
that's a piece that people don't necessarily know. Don's wife is very talented at graphic design, and she donated her time and her efforts to do that logo for us, and that logo's been a big part in everything that we've been doing with vaccines. So thank you to Don's wife as well.
Basically, she saw me struggling with a terrible, if it would have been my logo, we never would have used it. Thankfully, she saw me struggling with it and saved me.
Once again, Don, thank you for your hard work and for the very extensive job you've done on all of our social media sites and a daily newsletter, and for getting that information out there to the public. There's nothing more important than factual information on a timely basis. Next is the committee from the chair report. Over the last 4 weeks and just over 60 days into my term as chairwoman of your board, I have continued my commitment to enhance communication with all members of our board and with our community. I have emailed as a group and individually each supervisor, and I've had the chance to individually speak with 19 members of our board by phone or in person. I have sent out my 5th board member update on February 26th. These updates and other notifications have provided a consistent basis highlighting everything from enhancements to remote meetings to Warren County's vaccination plan, our partnership with New York State, and Washington County. And of course, we have the very exciting news that this morning we have officially opened a New York State mass vaccination site at the Aviation Mall in Queensbury. I had the chance to tour this location bright and early this morning with representatives from the state, Washington County Chairman Hall, and Adirondack Regional Chamber President Mike Biddle. Without a doubt, we recognize this vaccination center will not only have the impact in Warren County, but to all New Yorkers. I continue to be so impressed with the tireless efforts of our incredible team in Warren County. The efforts in each department and leadership provided by so many talented and dedicated individuals continue to make the difference to our residents and truly defines public service. County government has never been more essential than it is right now, and I know that I speak on behalf of our entire board when I say to each and every employee in Warren County, job well done. We are very grateful for each and every one of you. I will file a detailed report of meetings over the last month with our clerk of the board, and I will highlight just a few of these meetings that I've represented this board in multiple Zoom and in-person meetings this month, several training sessions with conferences currently being held online with NISAC and NACO, and of course, I have attended all committee meetings in addition to workshops, task force meetings, and various other county functions. All appointments have been made, and in addition, at this point in time, I'd like to just highlight our appointments to the LDC. That is something, their reorganizational meeting is this month, and I'd like to thank all of you that stepped up when you were asked to take an interest in the LDC. At this point in time, the board will meet next week to define who their directors are, but that is Supervisor McDevitt, Supervisor McGowan, Supervisor Merlino, Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Wild, and Supervisor Diamond. We also have the addition of a community member, Travis Whitehead. We have had an opportunity to look at these bylaws and confirm that we can have both board and community members. We had a single position left after reviewing those boards, and we were honored and excited to have Travis Whitehead agree to be that additional member. These are 2-year appointments, and the good news with that is we've now also confirmed that it is not tied to your elected positions. So you can certainly make a decision to resign at the end of your term or prior to, but they are 2-year, and they have been that way since the LDC bylaws had started. So that's the update to your LDC. Where I have also extended local emergency orders posted to the website, and I've shared them via email with all members. Once again, I'm grateful for this collaboration and dialogue with each of you. It's always important to hear how your committee work affects our county and our day-to-day operations. I'm excited to share in your goals and objectives as you each represent your municipalities on the county board. It is in this spirit that a few members have asked me to consider amending our standing committee list. At this time, I would like to thank those of you that have continued the hard work you've been asked to do as committee chairs. And I would also like to thank Supervisor Leggett, as he has reconsidered a chair position and will be our criminal justice chair for the rest of the year, and that will be vice chaired by Supervisor Shepler. So thank you both for that commitment. I also want to thank those of you that have adjusted to the smaller committees and fewer members, yet with more responsibilities. And your hard work and your focus is very impressive for the goals for 2021 in your respective committees. I will ask Amanda Allen to email out a revised standing committee list of committee members later today. There were some other minor revisions, and like I said, she'll send that out later at some point this afternoon. At this time, I'm going to ask each chair of their committee, by alpha order of your last name, to report to the board your committee updates. The key to our success as a board of supervisors is the hard work that each of you provide to our county in your committee work. And judging by our results in just a couple of months, I can see how hard each committee is working. Thank you for these efforts. Once again, it's a privilege to serve as your chairwoman, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you in 2021. At this time, Supervisor Beatty, I will note that the executive committee did not meet this month because there were not any items to come before this committee. And at this point, I would ask you to please lead our committee reports on both finance and governmental operations and advocacy.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It's a pleasure, and you're doing a great job. Thank you. I'm going to first do government ops, and I believe I have Beth and Billy on from government ops on resolution number 82 in your packet. This is the only resolution coming out of government ops. It's authorizing the submission of it's declaring old ADA voting booths and 25 BMD Dominion voting machines surplus, and authorizing disposition of old ADA voting booths and 25 to other New York State counties and to scrap them. Billy or Beth, did you want to make a comment on that, please?
Sure. Hi, Doug.
Hi, thank you.
Beth, please feel free at any time to jump in, but we've been out searching our adjoining tri-counties. We figured we'd start there first. Beth contacted Saratoga County. These machines, these BMD machines that we're replacing have no value to anyone else except a Board of Elections. Dominion would not give us a trade-in value on them since we leased the new machines. So we figured maybe donating them to adjoining counties that are going to start or have started having some of the same issues that we've had over the last few years with these BMDs. Saratoga County would like to take, we had 20 BMDs that are totally operable. So Saratoga County has asked for 10, Washington County has asked for 2, and Essex County has asked for 8. But we also have 4 BMDs that are parts machines that we've taken scanners off, and Essex County has asked that they can take, they requested to take the 4 for parts. So basically that'll dispose of our current BMDs that had no value. They'll be out and gone once we get our new ones, and we don't expect to put the new ones into operation until November. By the time we get them and get trained on them and get our inspectors trained on them, we expect to roll the new BMDs out in November. I'll let Beth on the ADA carts that we want to get rid of, Beth.
Yep, we got ADAs. We put an email out to the entire ECA. Nassau County actually has first dibs. They'll take all of them, or what fits in their trucks that they come and pick them up with. And then we have a list of, I think, 3 or 4 counties that will take anything that's remainder that we would like to get rid of.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Billy, for the update on that. So that will be number 82 in your packet. Thank you very much. That was the only resolution being brought forth from government ops. We'll jump right now into finance. Is Mike Swan there? If he is, I'd like to have him, he always gives us just an update from the Treasury Department. Is Mike there?
Yes, Supervisor Beatty, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swan. Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to say that we're still in the process of closing our books, so I really don't have any concrete figures yet as to where we stood with 2020. Things are not looking that bad. I think we're going to be okay. The stimulus package that was just signed by the president reports that we're going to get $12.5 something million. I found out yesterday that more than likely that money is going to go to the state, and then the state will give it to the county. That causes me some concerns, but there's nothing we can do about it. And the money has a tremendous amount of restrictions on how the county can spend it. I have doubts that we'll be able to spend all of that money, I'll be honest with you. But we'll see what happens. We first have to figure out what our losses were, and we can cover ourselves with that and then go from there. That's about all I have for that. At the last meeting, Supervisor Wild asked me to get some information about short-term rentals and occupancy tax and so forth. Unfortunately, most of the counties are in the same boat that Warren County's in, where we really don't know where we're at until probably the end of this month, just as the accounting cycle. But I do have a little bit of information that I came up with. Tompkins County, that was one that you said something about. They collect right around $3 million a year, and they are down, but they wouldn't state an amount. The same with Essex County, which collects about almost $3 million a year. Same thing. A couple of counties, just to give you an idea. Seneca County, they collect about $500,000 a year. They're down almost 30%. Ontario County, they collect right around $1 million. They're down about 6%. So it looks like it could be anywhere as far as that goes. As far as the short-term rentals go, we're still working on that. And just as a point of information, there are 35 counties out there that have an agreement with Airbnb. One of them is not Warren County. And everything that I've talked to about any of these counties that I've talked to about this, they just get a check. They have no idea where it's coming from, how much it is, what it was for, or even if it's an accurate amount. So the county attorney's office and I have been working with, and mostly the county attorney's office. I think we're going to end up with something with them, but it's going to be a hard, long fought battle. And I prefer that, even though it's overwhelmed my staff, I think we're going to be in better shape doing it on our own, to be honest with you. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swan. Very good. In your packets, there's resolutions 70 and 71, making supplemental appropriations, and 71 amending the Warren County budget for 2021 for various departments within Warren County. And also there will be resolutions 98 through 105 from the Finance Committee. 98 was authorizing the appropriation of funds for the vehicle reserve to departmental budgets to purchase vehicles, amending the 2021 Warren County budget. 98 was from Ron and Kevin, authorizing the implementation funding in the first instance, 100% of the federal aid and state Marcella program aid eligible costs of the transportation federal aid project, and appropriating funds therefore for the Department of Public Works. 100 is also from the DPW and Ron, increasing capital project number H3222 Palisades Road over Brant Lake Inlet Bridge CR 26, authorizing transfer of funds and amending the Warren County budget for 2021. 101 also from Kevin and Ron, DPW. We seem to be on a roll here. Awarding bid and authorization agreement with lowest responsible bidder for the construction services for the Palisades Road over the Brant Lake Inlet Bridge replacement project. 102, again, Finance, was sent to Finance. We approved it, and we're passing it along. It was from DPW. authorizing supplemental agreement number 3 with Foyt Albert Associates to provide additional right-of-way and construction inspection services for Palisades Road over the Brant Lake Inlet again. And 103, Parks and Recreation, this came from Ron, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the deferred revenues to the Up Yonda farm budget for the purpose of utilizing the junior Pearsall grant and the Charles Wood Junior Foundation grant, and amending the county budget. And also, this one was from Andrea in planning, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the deferred town poster sales to the planning and community development budget, amending the county budget. And the last one's from the treasurer, Mr. Swan, canceling or correcting the assessments and refunds and chargebacks of taxes for pilot payments made in 2021. So at this time, I'll ask if anybody on the board has a question on any of those resolutions, and if so, I'll have the appropriate department committee chairman and or department head address that. So are there any questions from the board on any of those resolutions that I just read? Is there any in the boardroom, Ms. Chairman?
Not that I see, Supervisor Beatty.
Okay, very good. That will conclude the Finance Committee resolutions and that came from our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Supervisor Bramer, Personnel Administration and Higher Education.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. We met on March 4th, and we only have 4 resolutions, so I'm going to go through them just quickly. The first one is amending the table of organization and Warren County salary plan, and that includes deleting that position of our temporary county fire coordinator, which we do not need anymore, and also creating the position of a new tourism position. And at the appropriate time, I would like to make an amendment to this table of organizations, but I don't need to do it right now. The second one is a resolution urging the legislature and the governor to provide additional support to our Suny schools, particularly here, Suny Adirondack and our Suny Plattsburgh at Queensbury campus. So that's very important, and I would like all of your support on that one. The next one is approving a remote work agreement. So this is going to allow many of our employees to continue working at home when appropriate, and of course, under the supervision of their supervisor, whether that be a department head or a supervisor within the department. So I want to thank very much our HR director, Jackie Figueroa, for putting this together and for input from Treasurer Swan as it related to the payroll issues and minor things. And Rob Lynch in his office was great there as well. We also had input from the IT director and our county administrator. So it was really a pretty big effort in a very short amount of time. And I want to thank all of them for putting this together so that we have something on paper going forward that allows flexibility, but also make sure that we also have accountability and consistency in how we're managing people working from home. The last one is adopting our Warren County Public Employer Health Emergency Plan. This was put together by Amy Clute, so a lot of kudos goes to her. I know she worked with many other people as well, but she was the one that pulled it together for us. And it basically lays out in another public health emergency, hopefully we don't have one any time in the next century, it does lay out what are those departments, how are they prioritized, and who is going to be considered an essential employee in the beginning of a pandemic type situation. So it's good that we have that down on in this particular emergency plan, and I thank her for her work on that. Also, 2 more items, if I may, Chairwoman. I want to thank the state very much for the mass vaccination site. Although there was a little hiccup with moving to the mall, it is wonderful that it is still here in Warren County and accessible to all of our residents right at the mall off of exit 19. So that's really great. And I personally want to thank Sam Parker, who is our state representative who works closely with us. I know that the chairwoman and our administrator and probably Don and many more have been talking to him on a daily basis, and it's great that he was able to help us advocate for this site, the state mass vaccination site, to be here. The last thing I want to note is one of the proclamations in our agenda is about Women's History Month, and you'll see there the list of women that have been involved in Warren County history. Is pretty impressive. The one person that I would like to call out, myself being an athlete, is Diane Struble in 1958, was the first person to swim the length of Lake George. Pretty cool fact that I learned over the summer. And I also want to point out that we in Warren County have many great department heads who are women. They do an excellent job, everywhere from obviously Janelle Jones to our county attorney Cassane to Jackie Figueroa and many others, and as well as our committee chairs, qualified people who are doing a great job, from Susan Scheffler in the criminal justice to Supervisor Hogan and Supervisor Frazier, and myself as minority leader. I'll throw myself in there. And finally, our very qualified and effective chairwoman. So it's a great time to be celebrating Women's History Month in Warren County. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Much appreciated. Supervisor Conover.
Thank you. The Public Works Committee met on March 4th, represented in your packet by resolutions 88 through 92. They're pretty self-explanatory. Commissioner Kevin Hajos will send out the results of the analysis when he has them on some of those requests for proposals. The committee also met on special meeting on 3/15, and the purpose of that meeting was to consider a lease arrangement at the fairgrounds. And if Kevin Hajos is available, if he could come to the mic, Kevin, and just give the board a quick review of the proposal and the and what the negotiating team and what the committee approved. And let me say at this juncture, let me thank Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Garrity, and Supervisor Hogan for agreeing to serve on the negotiating team. Kevin, if you could just give the board a quick outline of what the proposal is and what they're considering today.
Sure. So we put out proposals at the end of last year. We received the proposals in January. We only had one proposal we received. The name of the company is called Glamp Adirondack. They want to do something similar to Adirondack Glamping did, is to use the fairgrounds basically for the glamping or camping out in the fairgrounds. The proposal right now would be for 1 year, possibility to renew it for a second year with the approval of the Superintendent of Public Works, just to make sure that, as well as the town of Warrensburg Supervisor Garrity, to make sure that there's no issues over this year. I believe and I don't have it in front of me, the total amount of the proposal is a little over $26,000 for the first year, with a 5% increase. If we go a second year, there'd be a 5% increase.
Thank you, Kevin. While he's at the microphone, I'll just say, does anyone have any specific questions regarding the proposed lease? And that's represented in your packet as resolutions 107. There being no questions, Kevin, thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Diamond with Public Safety.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We have two resolutions in your packet today for your consideration. Resolution 87 is authorizing an agreement with MCI Communication Services to install and provide E-Lines fiber optic communication services at the Warren County Sheriff's Office and the Hague Radio Tower site to improve radio communications. The second resolution is Resolution 106, which is an adoption of the Warren County Police Reform and Reinvention Plan that was provided by Sheriff LaFar. Is there any questions in regards to any of these two resolutions? That concludes my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Diamond. Supervisor Dickinson, Environmental Concerns and Real Property Taxes.
No report.
Okay, Supervisor Dickinson, thank you. Supervisor Driscoll, Human Services.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairwoman. Human Services Committee met on February 22nd. We heard from the Countryside Adult Home There is only one resolution in today's packet. That is Resolution 86. It's an agreement for dietary consultant services at the Countryside Adult Home for a sum not to exceed $4,032 a year. The committee will next meet this coming Monday, March 22nd, on or about 12:25, and we will hear from the Department of Social Services and Veteran Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll. Health Services, Supervisor Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Health Services met on February the 22nd. We heard from Public Health, Mental Health, and Office for the Aging. We have 3 resolutions. Resolution number 83 comes from Office for the Aging, authorizing submission of a grant application to the New York State Office for the Aging for Medicare improvements for Patients and Providers Act. Resolution 84 from Office of Community Services, authorizing intermunicipal agreement with Saratoga County for shared mental health home-based crisis and mobile crisis services. Resolution 85 from Public Health, authorizing an agreement with High Peaks Hospice to provide hospice care to patients referred by Warren County. That's all we had on the agenda. I just would like to say what a great job I feel that our department heads do every month when you meet with them to discuss what they've been doing. I always feel that they go above and beyond, and sometimes I don't really think we give them the credit that they deserve, but I kind of like to put that out there so you're all aware. So I'd appreciate your support on those 3 resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Frazier. Tourism and Occupancy Tax Coordination, Supervisor Garrity.
Thank you. Tourism Occupancy Tax met on February 22nd. A lot of the discussion centered around the RFP for the best practices and finding out what the other regions in the state do on tourism and out of state. The RFP has been formulated. I believe the county has signed off. We're just waiting for the hospitality group to make any potential revisions they'd like to see, and I think they've been in touch with Mr. Bean. We also centered around discussions about Americade and Bloomfest being held on the same weekend in September. Also, the Oxy tax funding application was approved for 2021. It's posted on the Treasurer's website. Also included in the packet today is Resolution 93, extending the agreement with Adirondack Regional Tourism for regional marketing services an amount not to exceed $10,000. And last but not least, in Resolution 94, which is part of the Personnel Committee, is a new position in the Tourism Department. And I ask that you support these. Also, I'd really like to thank Joanne and the staff down there. They've been working hard. I also like to thank the town supervisors and the city of Glens Falls and the village for getting in their 2020 reports they're in. And we will be working on a spending plan, auxiliary spending plan for 2021 in the near future. But a lot of work's been done by the tourism department, and thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Hogan, Economic Growth and Development.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Economic Growth and Development met on February 23rd. We had an update from County Planning. We heard from Liza Oxendorf from Employment and Training. And we had a presentation by Kevin Lynch from Slick Network outlining what some of the impediments are to broadband rollout in our area. The task forces continue to meet, and as always, we are grateful to those dedicated volunteers who spend their time identifying issues, both COVID and non-COVID related, and passing them on up to us. As always, their work is very much appreciated. We only have one resolution today. It's Resolution 80, thanking Sarah Mannix for a donation of printing to the Planning Department, and I hope you'll all support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Hogan. Lost track. Sorry. Supervisor McGowan, County Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. County Facilities met February 23rd, and we have 3 resolutions, 72, 73, and 74. The first one is actually authorizing a submission for a grant application with the Federal Aviation Administration, really for the COVID response. So we're applying for some grant money there. County facilities on the buildings and grounds, they're basically contracts for on-call needed for the HVAC and for any of our garage doors. Also, the team has been working hard with negotiations for the solar. Kevin, are you comfortable in possibly giving us a little bit of an update on that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So we had 8 proposers total for the solar land lease for the fairgrounds. We've narrowed it down to the top 3 proposers. I've been working with Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Wild, and Supervisor Strow on negotiating these. We met with all the proposers, at those top 3 proposers at this time. There was some questions that we wanted answered. They came back and answered those questions. I actually just received the last of their emails last night, which I'm going to pass out to the negotiating team, and hopefully we'll have a little more of an update come the meeting on Tuesday, committee meeting.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to the solar team there. I really appreciate you guys doing that extra work for our county and making sure that we come in solid here. So appreciate it. And that's all I have. So I would like to just thank everyone for the hard work with the mass vaccine site coming to the Aviation Mall. I was happy to see it go there over the tents. Walking out this morning and seeing how chilly it is, but it was a lot of work and a lot of effort by all of us. And really, special thanks for our health department and our chairwoman and Claudia for staying right on it and doing it. I have heard so many people of getting their first shot Saturday and Sunday. Everybody's excited. So it's really exciting to see and to see that this is all happening. So thank you all. Yeah, that's all for my report.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. Supervisor Merlino, Park Operations and Management.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Park and Management met on the 23rd. We only had one discussion on a wall that's on our property near the Tiki, and we're working on meeting with people to see what we can do to get it repaired. And now that the governor has lifted some of the restrictions on outdoor activities, we're going to be working with the mayor to see what we can do to start getting more back into our park, and because we lost a lot last year with the cancellations. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Now to our new team, Supervisor Leggett and Supervisor Shepler on criminal justice. I know you're getting up to speed, Supervisor Leggett, and Supervisor Shepler, if you want to touch on last month.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, the Criminal Justice Committee has met, and before you in the packet is Resolution 75, 76, 77, 78, and 79. We would like this to go forward for your consideration and your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Smith, Extension Services.
Thank you. Our whole team went to the cooperative extension meeting by Zoom on February 22nd. They're installing a new range hood in the commercial kitchen of the new building. They're looking forward to being able to use the facility for educational programs for both youth and adults. They'll be having their annual plant sale on May 21st from 8:30 to 4 p.m., May 22nd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. They'll be selling annual and perennial flowers will be available, a selection of herbs and vegetables, and there are order forms on their website. Their next meeting is March 22nd by Zoom. Unfortunately, I'm going to be late to that meeting, so I'm hoping that Supervisor Driscoll will be able to be there, at least from our team. I do have a Glens Falls YMCA board meeting at 5, and hopefully I'll be able to pop in by 6:30. Their meeting's at 6, so it'll be tight. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor. I can see Supervisor Driscoll shaking his head yes, that he's excited about doing that for you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Supervisor Thomas, budget.
Thank you. No report.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask for a report by our County Administrator, Ryan Moore, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As everybody is well aware now, today is the first day of the mass vaccination clinic. We were just over there at 8 o'clock for the opening this morning and to get a sense of how it operates. The state's done a great job setting it up. This clinic is going to be operating 7 days a week, 11 hours a day. It's starting off north of 500 doses a day with the ability to scale up significantly from there. And I want you to know that it's currently booked out to April 7th, which represents day 20 of this clinic. So it's very popular already, as we knew it would be. We have a real need here in this area. I update you every morning on how Warren County is doing relative to the rest of the state on vaccinations. We're in the number 4 slot. Hamilton County, Essex County, and Clinton County are ahead of us. Those results are always a day delayed. That represents where we were at yesterday morning. So since yesterday morning, we did a clinic here for 200, and now we're going to have all of these vaccinations operating down at the Mass site. So by tomorrow afternoon, we're going to have all of that reflected in the data, which I'll report on Sunday morning. I'd be a little nervous if I were Essex County, because Essex County right now is only 1.6% ahead of us. In the spirit of friendly competition, we're going to gain on that, I predict. So we'll know on Sunday, Monday, how we're doing relative to Essex and Clinton, which is slightly above Essex. I want to highlight also our partnership with Washington County in getting this done, and our partnership with New York State. We worked very closely with Washington County to get an extra tray of Pfizer, which was the big clinic that we held on Sunday the 7th. Thank you to all of our staff that worked really, really hard to pull that clinic off on such short notice. It was a huge success. We did 1,170 doses in one day at the Queensbury Senior Center, thanks to the staff in Queensbury also who helped us out in staging it there on short notice. We appreciate all of it. And it was also due to our joint advocacy with Washington County that we really went the last mile in the marathon that has been the effort to get this Mass site here. Washington County was instrumental in helping us to finally get that done. And they were with us this morning to take a tour of that site. And we thank our partners at the state for helping us with that. We have had a whole lot of movement on a lot of requests that Warren County has made with New York State over the past few weeks. Of course, the pieces I've already mentioned with the Mass site and that Pfizer clinic that we were able to host. But also on March 10th, the state, as you all know, increased the eligibility to 60 plus. It had been age 65 and over. We had been advocating for them to drop that down to 60 and to open up eligibility. We're very happy when they made that announcement on March 9th. That was effective on the 10th. And also part of that March 9th announcement was that as of St. Patrick's Day, they expanded to all of those additional essential worker populations, the public-facing workers. And we have had a lot of interest. That's, for instance, the 200 that we did yesterday was primarily people that were eligible as a result of that announcement. We had advocated for that. We were very happy to get that. And a huge one that also happened on the 17th was, remember the system I talked about at the last board meeting where all the providers had to stay in their own lane, where we could only do essential workers and we couldn't do 65 plus. We asked that the state get rid of those lanes and just allow everybody to do everybody that's eligible. And we've been doing that since the 17th. We're very, very grateful to have gotten that change through. It's a positive step forward. All of these things coming together on the vaccines is so important from the perspective of getting the economy back open, because it's our strong percentages with vaccinations as well as recoveries, that is the key to getting people to participate more in the economy and get these capacity restrictions lifted. We have already started to see positive results there. And on the travel quarantines, I'm just kind of rehash some of these announcements because they've been coming fast and furious. The travel quarantines, as you all know, anybody who's an employer knows, it's been difficult from a time management perspective. When your employees leave the state to have to come back and quarantine and have to use that time on their own. It's also been difficult for local health departments because the local health departments, in addition to contact tracing, vaccines, all the other things that they're doing, have had to keep track of these travelers coming back. And it's also been tough for morale. No matter who you are, you have family and friends that are in other states, and in many cases, we haven't seen them. So we had asked New York State to consider waiving those travel quarantine restrictions for people that are fully vaccinated, as well as people who have recovered. And the state announced on March 10th that they were doing that. And then the following day, and we had also asked for this with the help of Dr. Borgos, our medical director, who actually wrote a letter to Commissioner Zucker. We had asked for the travel quarantine to be eliminated altogether because you have a situation where New York State's numbers are no longer a lot better than all these other states' numbers, where it's evened out over time. And the governor went along with that, and the State Department of Health went along with that too. And as of April 1st, we no longer have to worry about the travel quarantines that are not related to COVID exposure, but just based on the fact that you went to a state that's non-contiguous. So that all goes away April 1st. Again, it's good for our health department, good for our employers, good for our hoteliers that don't have to worry about this with their guests anymore, and good for morale all around. If you have a grandchild in a southern state that you haven't seen, I know at least one board member is in that position. So we're very happy to have that lifted. Gathering limits on Monday, the 22nd, this coming Monday, the residential social gathering limit stays at 10 for indoors. It increases from 10 to 25 for outdoors. For non-residential events, currently the limit has been 50. It's been 50 since last summer. On Monday, it goes to 100 indoors, and it goes to 200 outdoors. That's a big change. And then on Friday, April 2nd, if you incorporate testing, that 100 indoor limit goes to 150 if everybody in the gathering indoors is tested. And if everybody in the gathering outdoors is tested, the 200 limit goes to 500. That's Friday, April 2nd. That announcement kind of played havoc with the state guidance on weddings and in-person events and catered events. We had asked for clarification for a couple of weeks from the state. We got all the clarification that we were looking for on that. I sent out some details on what that clarification was. If anybody has questions about it, I can answer those questions. But in a nutshell, the expanded activities in these events, they do allow for standing cocktail parties, and they do allow for dancing now. That applies to any event beginning actually on the 15th, this past Monday. On next Monday, the 22nd, there's enhanced protocols in effect for these events. Enhanced protocols means testing for all attendees, as well as notification for the health department. Currently, those enhanced protocols only apply to events between 50 and 150. Next week, that requirement goes away for outdoor events up to 200. And instead of being for 50 to 150, it goes up to 100 guests to 150 guests. So there's fewer events now where you have to do those enhanced protocols. And then on Friday, April 2nd, you can actually have an outdoor wedding or an outdoor in-person event or catered event all the way up to 500 people. If you're within that 200 to 500 range, you just have to do testing. So we were happy to get confirmation on that. We got that yesterday morning. And then yesterday afternoon, we got movement on arenas, which is something we've asked for. We have both the Civic Center, and we also have some outdoor arenas, such as the Painted Pony Rodeo over in Lake Luzerne that we work closely with. So that was very, very good news. What that is if you're an arena that has a capacity of 1,500, you can do a 10% capacity starting on, what was the date on that? It was April 1st. And if you're an outdoor arena with a capacity of 2,500, you can go to 20%. Again, that was something that we had advocated for. And then the other positive announcement yesterday was sports travel. So we've been under limitations that if you are a team that's housed here, or if you're a facility that hosts sports here, you could only have teams that were from contiguous regions, which is very confusing for people because you have to know which counties are in which ESD region. That's going to be all lifted as of March 29th. March 29th, those travel restrictions are lifted. So teams from anywhere in the state can play here, and our teams can play anywhere else in the state. Again, something that since from the get-go last summer has presented problems and challenges that we've worked really hard to navigate through, and now those are lifted, which is a good thing. So, I mean, things are definitely moving in the right direction. It's all tied to vaccinations. We're happy to be on the forefront of that, leading as one of the best counties in the state. We did also get positive news on the federal stimulus. As the treasurer indicated, the devil's going to be in the details there. The United States Treasury has to come out with guidelines. We're working with them through NACO, through NISAC, through Senator Schumer's office to try to get what our concerns are up front as Treasury is writing these guidelines. A lot of unanswered questions there, but we already have somewhat of a plan on how to start getting to quantifying what this county is able to use, and we will continue to address this going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. A report by our county attorney?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. This last month, I attended committee meetings on February 22nd, 23rd, March 4th, 15th, and 19th. I also attended the special board meeting on March 2nd. I attended a meeting between the county administrator, chairwoman, and Kristen O'Neill from the Committee on Open Government. I also attended meetings with the chair, Supervisor Bramer, and Real Property. I drafted numerous advisory emails, the resolutions in front of you all today, many contracts. I'm afraid the chair is really going to dislike me this weekend, as well as provided advice to multiple department heads and supervisors.
Thank you. Reading of communications?
We have Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corp. January 2021 surcharge in the amount of $2,555. And then the 2020 Regional Benefit Distribution Installments number 4 and 5, each in the amount of $2,408. We have resolution number 63 of 2021 from the Hamilton County Board of Supervisors entitled Resolution Urging the Governor and Federal Government to Expand Broadband and Rural Cellular Coverage to All New Yorkers. And Washington County Board of Supervisors resolution number 27 of 2021 entitled Appointing Members to the Counties of Warren and Washington Industrial Development Agency and Civic Development Corporation.
Thank you. At this point, we'll have reading of resolutions.
Resolution number 70 through 107 were distributed to the board and posted to the Warren County website on or before Tuesday, March 16th, which meets the deadline specified in the rules of the board. Resolution number 96 was amended after mailing, and that was just distributed to you this morning. That was the policy for remote work. The original resolution included the arrangement, but not the overriding policy. So that's before you now. So a motion is needed to approve the changes to that resolution.
Should we address that first? Yeah. That motion is made by Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I was going to ask that we pull that for discussion. Thank you for approving it. I was part of that committee. I supported, and I think it's a necessary tool to have. But I also want to, the flip side of that is I also want to make sure that we're not going after our employees and making it seem like we don't trust or respect that they are in fact doing their work from home. the 40-plus year career in working for not-for-profits, too often I've had to account for my time because my time was paid by 2, 3, 4 different funding sources. So at the end of the day, I had to account for where I was working. Oftentimes you were multitasking, an 8-hour day. Jokingly, sometimes it took me 2 hours to kind of figure out all the math where I was. So I just wanted to point out that in no way, in my opinion, are we targeting our employees, who I consider to be the most valuable asset that Warren County has. I recognize that they work hard, whether they're working here on the campus of Warren County or they're working remotely from home. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll. Administrator Moore, did you want to speak to that?
Oh, sure. So far, so good on the evaluation of this policy by department heads. As the union also looked at it, the union, I don't believe, had any changes to it, or if they did, they were very minor. Is Jackie on by any chance? I'm fogging up my glasses. If there were any changes, they were small changes. But I reached out to department heads, I think Friday last week, to get them looking at this, knowing that there was a possibility we'd have this in place effective after this board meeting. And they've most of them have gotten back to me so far, indicated they don't see issues with it. I've got 2 department heads to call back this afternoon, but so far so good on that front.
Are there any other, Supervisor Bramer?
Just on that, I want to mention that we did hear some concerns about the policy originally said that you couldn't use any personal computers at home because IT is really trying to tighten up our security and they don't want people doing county work on personal devices. But we heard that there is a concern about not everyone yet has a county device to use for their work at home. So we did amend that. I just want to make that clear. We are working with everybody. We trust our employees and we are making it as smooth as we can. They're going to use Nova time just like normal to punch in and punch out. And it's just a matter of making sure that we have it consistent across the board for the county. And I think the employees will be happy to know that this is something we will allow going forward, just even after we come out of the pandemic. So I think it's a positive move for us. I see it that way.
Lots of lessons learned. Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Are there other discussions before we call the vote on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Stroud.
Yeah, are we on discussions and public comment on proposed resolutions?
No, Supervisor Stroud, we're still talking about the work from home, the flex policy.
Okay.
Did you have a comment about that?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion regarding this specific resolution? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you, that carries. Okay, great. So at this point in time, I'll open the floor for any requests regarding discussion on resolutions. Supervisor Stroud.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Seaver. As you know, and you've all received a copy of it, that I've proposed a resolution that is very short and sweet and basically says, you know, the nature of the creation of the majority and minority positions appears to seek division, and this is the wrong time to seek that kind of division. George Washington, in his 1796 farewell address, he proclaimed that political parties, they may appear to answer popular ends, but they are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which had lifted them to unjust dominion. So basically,
I'm sorry, just a point of order, Supervisor Stroud. What you're proposing today is to waive the rules to present this resolution. You have passed it out ahead of time. Would you like to read the resolution? At this point in time, it's just a motion to waive the rules.
No, I have to preface where I want to go, because I think it's important when the individuals vote on waiving the rules, what they're waiving.
Resolutions, Supervisor Stroud.
What they're waiving the rules for. So Washington,
Stroud, at this point in time, what I'd like
just
to do
warning
is
the
people to
American
call a
people
resolution or a vote.
against the negative impacts of opposing political parties. And partisan politics can cause intelligent people to make very stupid decisions. We've seen that.
Supervisor Stroud, just a point of order. As much as I'd appreciate this dialogue, and I certainly look forward to it if your motion passes on the waiving of the rules, at this point in time, the proper parliamentarian procedure is to ask if I assume you're making a motion to waive the rules to discuss your resolution.
I am making
Is there a
motion to waive
second
the
to that
rules.
motion to waive the rules?
But if that doesn't pass, I'll never be able to discuss where
Supervisor Stroud, at this point in time, it is a motion before us. That is now seconded by Supervisor Wild. Thank you.
So-
This is specifically to talk about the motion to waive the rules.
so that I can talk about my resolution, right?
Just a motion to waive the rules to bring it.
So if the motion to waive the rules doesn't pass, do I get a chance to talk about my resolution?
I will certainly defer to our county administrator or our county attorney to provide you with that.
That's why I'm using the opportunity now, because waiving the rules and bringing the resolution
Stroud,
to
that's
the
why we
floor
have the process to go through
so much
committee.
related. All right. I have a few more points to make. Partisan
Our
politics.
county administrator, I'm going to ask for him to just clarify the process, the parliamentarian process moving forward.
Right now, we're discussing the motion that's on the floor, which is to waive the rules in order to consider this resolution.
And that's why I'm trying to explain the resolution.
We have a copy of the resolution in front of us.
Yeah, but I need to explain the background to it. The
Supervisor
partisan
Stroud, at this point,
politics
is it a roll?
just is not the path to solutions. I think Supervisor Conover stated it recently. We all need to come together to solve these problems, to find solutions. And resolution number 81, which complements what I'm trying to do, but wasn't mentioned, advocates for the bridging of divisions and working together.
Supervisor Stroud, at this point in time, I'll just ask if there's any objection from the members of the board for you to continue talking about the resolution you've provided to us. That would be the proper procedure. Without objection, by all means, please feel free to discuss this, but it is regarding a resolution to waive the rules. Are there any objections to this discussion at this time? Hearing none, please continue, Supervisor Stroud.
Well, thank you. So the whole purpose of my resolution is not to be made personal, and it's not about personalities. It's about these two positions and what they tend to do. They tend to cause and suggest that there's division. One of the reasons why I've enjoyed working on this board for 7.5 years is the unity. The unity, other than the chairmanship, we've never discussed politics or partisan differences. We look at the issues and we look at them together. And we've looked at many issues together. And that's what we have to do, is continue looking at one unit. There is no division. And I will take the position that Democrat or Republican has no place in the Board of Supervisors of Warren County. So all I'm advocating for is that these two positions be eliminated. Thank you.
Supervisor Stroud, was there anything you wanted to talk about with the motion to waive the rules?
Well, I just hope that the board votes in favor of waiving the rules so that this resolution can come before them for their expression.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on waiving the rules? I see Supervisor Wild. Again, this is related to waiving the rules.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'm not really sure how to go here, but I get a little concerned when we don't allow people to speak their minds and we kind of use the rules to stop opinions that it might be different from some others.
Supervisor Wild, right now we are allowing that. Excuse me.
I'd like to have that
Excuse me, a
discussion.
point of order, Supervisor Wild. We have allowed great latitude in this discussion this morning. It is a motion to waive the rules. To your point, we have allowed and permitted without objection Supervisor Stroud to talk about why it's important. And I'd like to afford that same courtesy to you, Supervisor Wild. That is exactly what we're doing this morning.
So I can talk about it now, or
The motion
only if
to
the
waive-
rules are, only if we,
Is there any objection to Supervisor Wild speaking about the Supervisor Hogan?
Can we the board on the whole wants to bring this to the floor and then have discussion?
Could you just speak a little louder into your microphone?
Sorry. Can we see if the board as a whole wants to bring this to the floor and then have discussion? Wouldn't that be the proper procedure?
That is the proper procedure. At this point in time, in order for this to have a motion to waive the rules and come before us to then have the discussion regarding the resolution in front of you off the floor by Supervisor Stroud, a 2/3 vote will be required. At this point in time, I would ask for there to be a roll call. Yes, please.
Got somebody.
Mrs. Frazier? Mrs. Frazier is left. Ms. Smith?
No, I'm not.
Ms.
You
Hogan?
had a hand up.
I'm sorry, Ms. Smith, are you voting in favor of the motion to waive the rules? Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Hogan?
No.
Supervisor Dickinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Merlino?
Yes.
Supervisor Stroud?
Yes.
Supervisor Wild?
Yes.
Supervisor McGowan?
No.
Supervisor Beatty?
Recuse.
Supervisor Thomas?
Yes.
Supervisor Shepler?
Yes.
Supervisor Garrity?
Yes.
Supervisor Conover?
Yes.
Supervisor Leggett?
Yes.
Supervisor Diamond?
No.
Supervisor McDevitt?
Yes.
Supervisor Bramer?
Recuse.
Supervisor Bruno?
Yes.
Supervisor Driscoll?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Sieber?
No.
Okay, so you needed 600 and, just give me 1 second, 667 votes in favor, and the vote only achieved 603, so the motion fails.
Supervisor Bramer.
I would request discussion on, just give me a second, 75 as well as 94.
Let's take 75 first, please.
Thank you. I apologize for not getting around to ask about this sooner. I'm just curious about the not to exceed language being eliminated. Does it still mean, though, that they can't go over what the grant amount is? And I guess I'm looking at Susan, but does anyone have an answer?
I'm sorry, which resolution?
This is about the assigned counsel office changing the contract to remove the not to exceed amount. But I think, I just want to confirm that they're still going to be subject to the amount of the grant dollars.
Oh, yes.
Okay, okay, thanks. That's it, thank you.
Is there any other discussion regarding 75? No? Hearing none, I'll close discussion on Resolution 75. The other resolution, I believe that you asked for Supervisor Bramer, was a roll call on 94.
Not a roll
Oh,
call,
excuse
if
me,
I could have discussion, please, Chairwoman.
Of course.
Thank you. With Supervisor Garrity's consent, what I would like to do, this is the position in tourism, and what we were hoping to achieve here was to use an existing position, enhance it a little bit, and hopefully get some revenue creation out of that new position. I know that we received a lot of phone calls from the tourism and hospitality community, and I went back through the description and tried to get a better sense of what is going on, and I do support this position. I also, though, given their concerns and also my preference to delete positions that we have that are not filled by a person, that we would change this organization plan to reflect that we are deleting that communication position that is funded in the budget but not filled with a person, so that essentially we're swapping out that position for this different position. If Supervisor Garrity is okay with that. We had some email correspondence, but.
Supervisor Garrity?
Well, I'm not really okay with changing the position. we've had our committee pass the position. We brought it to the full board. I'd rather vote on what we have in front of us at the 11th hour. As far as eliminating positions in the budget, we should have talked about it at Personnel Committee and done it that way. I would be okay with eliminating position at a future date, but to do it at a board meeting, I just don't think it's correct without having the rest of the committee involved in the discussion. So, and that's just the way I feel about it. If we're going to follow the rules, let's follow the rules.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Absolutely, Supervisor Garrity. That's fair enough. So I will, maybe you can bring it up on tourism to come through committee. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda for this month, but we can take it in due time. We'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Is this discussion regarding Resolution 94, Supervisor Merlino?
No.
Do you mind if I just finish up discussion on this one? Is there any other discussion on 94? Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, is that 93 or 94? Are we talking about the tourism position?
We're talking about amending the tables of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2021, Resolution 94.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other discussion on that? I'll close discussion on that one. Supervisor Molino.
I just got a quick question, on the one that just failed, the, moving the rules. I don't think Ms. Frazier voted on it. Would that make a difference if it passed or didn't pass? She was out of the room.
At this point in time, what would be the proper protocol?
The answer is no.
Do you want to address that?
Only 11 votes, is that right, Edna?
That's
Yes,
right.
so the answer is no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there discussion on other resolutions? Supervisor Hogan.
Resolution 81.
Resolution 81. Supervisor Hogan, if you wouldn't mind, just Supervisor Garrity's having a tough time hearing you up here. If you would just, thank you very much. This is the Joint Economic Growth and Development and Government Operationals Advocacy Resolution regarding on bridging divisions and working together.
Right. I've often heard the phrase used, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And to be honest, I've never really liked that saying, but it is why I'm voting for this resolution today. In theory, I agree with everything the resolution states, and it certainly is a feel-good resolution. I was told it was a good start. I find that slightly embarrassing to admit that we are only at the start. There are many in our communities who live their lives far past the starting line, and we should have taken the time to gather their input and learn from their experience. As far as I know, only one town has addressed this resolution, and I want to say kudos to Supervisor Frazier in the town of Hague. There's no substantive action in this resolution, and that worries me. Will the county be reviewing our hiring practices and policy language for unconscious bias? Will the county examine departments for systemic problems? Will we be calling each other out for microaggressions? Will we get training on more thoughtful use of language? For some reason, we couldn't take the time to craft this resolution better. In actuality, create something that was really inclusive and active in promoting diversity, honest and respectful dialogue, and committed to progress. Still, I'll vote for it, but I'm going to take very seriously the responsibility attached to my vote, and I hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other discussions regarding Resolution 81? Supervisor Strath.
Yes, this was put forward by the ANCA, the Adirondack North Country Association. And as you probably know, they're very active in promoting economic development in the Adirondacks. And they're a nonprofit, and they're trying to just build more dynamic local economies up north. And so I think this is a very good resolution. I agree with what Supervisor Hogan said as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Discussion on that resolution. Other resolutions for discussion? Looking at Zoom in the boardroom. Hearing none, at this point in time, I'll ask for public comment from Mr. Lehman on any of our resolution-specific public comments.
Good morning, Chairwoman Seaver. We do have a comment from Chris Strow, reference to one of the resolutions. It reads, monies saved by cutting stipends should be just that, saved, not put back into the pockets of the newly created, highly controversial majority-minority leaders. No law in NYS mandates politically oriented caucuses. May is not must. I strongly support the resolution dissolving the majority-minority leaders. Should the resolution fail to garner the necessary two-thirds vote, kindly consider the following. Remember in high school when the school principal appointed the class officers? Governor Cuomo appoints the NYS majority-minority leaders in both legislative chambers. President Biden appoints his cabinet. If your answer was no to any of these three statements, you would be correct. Fact is, the classmates choose their class officers, not the principal. The rank and file from both legislative bodies choose their majority party leaders, not the governor. The president nominates candidates for his cabinet. The Senate goes through a vetting and confirmation process for each cabinet appointment. If a candidate doesn't have the required number of votes, then the candidate's appointment fails. It's that simple. It's how things work in a democracy. So why in Warren County is it acceptable that Chairperson Seaver choose the majority-minority leaders? I urge all Warren County supervisors to end this government overreach and demand that you, not the chairperson, choose your majority-minority leaders. Although I guess that technically, is that a resolution at this point? I'm not sure, but we also have some
thank Mrs. Strow for her comments. Are there other public comments?
We have a comment from Diane Collins about Zero Waste Planning Committee, but I don't believe that really pertains to a resolution in today's board meeting.
I don't believe so. Are there others?
No, that's it on resolutions.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
If there's no objection, I would ask that Ms. Collins' comment be read into the record, please.
For public comment?
We do have another opportunity for public comment before the meeting is adjourned, if that's acceptable, Supervisor Bramer.
Yes, thank you. I thought that was it. Thank you.
Okay, hearing none. No further discussions at this point in time. We'll move on to any requests for roll calls. Hearing none. Thank you very much. We'll vote on resolutions.
Okay, Resolution 70, making supplemental appropriations. Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 71, amending Warren County budget for 2021 for various departments within Warren County. Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 94, amending Warren, tables of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2021. Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
No.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 98, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the vehicle reserve to departmental budgets to purchase vehicles. Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 100, increasing capital project number H322 Palisades Road over Brant Lake Inlet Bridge. Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 103, authorizing the appropriation of funds from deferred revenues to the Up Yonda Farm budget. Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 104, authorizing appropriation of funds from deferred revenue count poster sales to the Planning and Community Development budget. Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. You need a collective on all the rest.
So a collective vote on the rest of the resolutions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That carries. Thank you very much. At this point in time, I'd like to open privilege of the floor, first to our board members and then to the public. Are there any members of our board for privilege of the floor? Supervisor Conover, then Supervisor Bramer, then Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you.
Supervisor Conover.
Just generally, as all of you know, I'm a real stickler about the rules of the board, and that matters of the rules of the board generally, I believe, should go to the board for consideration. There are rules after all. And I just think that, and that's why I think some of you have been, all of you have been in on the conversations that are going on relative to Robert's Rules of Order and voting and committees and all of that. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why is Conover, being such a hard case on a small, what might be considered by some a small matter relative to that, but really it's a much bigger matter than the specific item, because it has to do with the rules of the board and my position that regardless of where you are on an issue, when it comes to the rules of the board, that belongs in front of the board and for our consideration. And no small committee or any committee should really be denying, in my opinion, the movement of a matter that deals with the rules of the board. And in the action that just took place, assuming for the moment that Edna was going to change her vote to yes, there were 13 yes, and there were 4 no's with 2 recusals. So out of 17 votes that were cast, am I reading that right? I'm sorry. Out of 18 votes that were cast, 14 were yes. Now the motion failed, properly so, based on our weighted vote, because that 2/3 is there to protect the minority. It's there to protect the small group, not the large group. That's why that's there. It's a strong test. And so, the message going forward, when you look at a vote like that, and I've never seen any vote like that in my entire time on this board, I think it's a message really to all of us that there are some real concerns and real divisions within the board relative to some matters. And I would hope that all of us, not just the leadership, but all of us, could somehow find a way to come together going forward. Because there's something really, I think, a bad message on 14 out of 18 supervisors voting for something, regardless of whether it's yes or no, and 4 voting, regardless of if it was yes or no. That division, I think, is telltale. I think it's telling us something, and I think we should heed that warning. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Bramer.
Just as it relates to rules of the board and the number of people voting versus the weighted vote here, I think that this demonstrates the need for us to get away from a board of supervisors that has individuals with 11 votes and others with 85 votes. We really need to be looking at a legislative board where every person on this board has the same vote as everyone else, and that we have equal representation across the county. And I will be continuing to advocate for a change to a legislative board where we get rid of this ridiculous weighted voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Leggett was next, and I see Supervisor McDevitt.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sieber. Would really like to express thanks to the Sheriff's Office, to Sheriff LaFar, Under Sheriff Camo, for pulling together their plan that we adopted today. It was very significant, and they deserve good congratulations for doing what they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett.
Amen.
Are there any I see you, I'll come back to you, Claudia, on round 2, or Supervisor Bramer. Supervisor Bruno, was that your hand? Supervisor Driscoll, was that yours?
Giving a thumbs up to Supervisor Leggett.
I know this is a little non-traditional at this point in time, but now that we have had such great training on the rules of the board, and I have not asked him to do this, I would like to debate an issue, and I would like privilege of the floor. And at this point in time, I would ask that Supervisor Diamond come up to chair the meeting.
Madam Chair, normally is that without objection?
No, sir. It's privilege of the floor.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to go on the record saying that I do not have any ambitions at all to be sitting here on a regular basis. I've watched several of my colleagues, including Mr. Conover, Mr. Thomas, Mr. Garrity, and now Madam Chair, sit here, and I watch how hard that they work at performing at this level, and I appreciate what they do. And I want to say this, that I have supported every one of those chairpersons to give them an opportunity to deliver the message that they want to carry during their time as chairperson, and I appreciate that. So I'll just turn that over to Chairwoman Sieber now.
Thank you, Supervisor Diamond, or acting chair at the moment, Diamond. As chair, I need to step away if I would like to debate any issues. And during privilege of the floor, we all have that opportunity to speak. Today, what we heard Supervisor Conover say was the importance of protecting the minority. And I take that very seriously. I think we are a community that shows we have a very diverse population in both our electorate and in our residents. It is our job to make sure we represent everyone. In protecting the minority, it is exactly why the legislation is there. It is not required, It is an option. And it is an option that is tied with compensation. We have talked about this every single month since the beginning of the board meetings. We have talked about this at great length because for years we had the position of a vice chair that did not go through a proposition process, put on a ballot, and allowed the voters to be able to have an opportunity to weigh in on paying additional compensation. At the time I became chair, where 18 of you voted, or actually 19 of you voted, I don't even know at this point, the majority voted. And I appreciate that support. But we had a discussion at that point in time and leading up to that vote, after that vote, and before our rules of the board were permitted. We approved not once, but twice these positions. We have a process. It has gone through committee over and over. We continue to talk about it. And in the spirit of protecting the minority, which is our job as well, we have these opportunities and these options available to us so that we are in accordance with the law. I appreciate the fact the board wanted to follow the procedures and to follow the law. If you choose not to have compensation for your positions as supervisors, I would very much like you to consider that we should volunteer, that we should have $1 for our salaries. You should remove the stipend for chair. We all work very hard. So I agree with you, Supervisor Conover. Protecting the minority is important. And I'd like to remind the majority members on this board that we are very much closely, and I don't want to say divided, we are very close in terms of our Republican representation, to our Democrat representation, to our independent representation. And throughout this entire procedure, all of you have been engaged in dialogue, phone calls, meetings, to the extent that you will take them and talk to me. You represent your community and your constituents, and I hope we encourage each other to do that respectfully. This board deserves a chance. And yes, Supervisor Conover, I know you've been here longer, but in all my time, I have never seen this either. I would appreciate, in the spirit of what we represent, which is all of our residents, that we move forward and we move forward together. I completely support the idea and have always of a legislative body. That is not before us today. But equal representation is something that we should all be considering. And as it relates to the rules of the board, I stood before you many times since January 8th and asked very patiently, very respectfully, that we all get trained, that we listen to the training from our county clerk and our county attorney and our county administrator, that we have an opportunity to meet with the NACO parliamentarian next month at a workshop, and that we all become more familiar with Robert's rules and the rules of our board, which historically, many changes take place year to year, and also by resolution throughout the year. Supervisor Beatty has agreed in a very important committee to be able to discuss this at length for as long as it takes for us to do a good job to suggest changes to this board. Historically, as far back as we want to go, we continue to see issues that we need to continue to update. That's not a criticism. It is simply that over the years, things have to get updated. And our board has updated in the representation that we have. So I agree, we should protect the minority. I just wanted to take an opportunity to let you know that I've asked over and over for an opportunity to lead this board. And I'm hopeful that all of you will find a way to do just that. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Chairman Diamond, for sitting in for a few moments so that I could please have the privilege of the floor. We'll continue with privilege of the floor. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for that. You speak very well, and I've always little power flitches here. But the one thing I want to say, you know, with the changes that we have made with this year, with the changing of the boards and that, I have to say that the communication that I have received from this whole board is immensely increased to the point where to me, it's an honor to work with all of you. All the previous years, I didn't have this interconnection of talking with all of you. And now, you know, we seem to be on the phone with the emails, you know, we talk more. I feel a great bond, and I really feel that this system is working in the right manners that it should be. And I've stated this before, I feel it's just 2 words. And I'm really, it's getting to the point where it's getting annoying every month to have to deal with this. And I would just respect that the rest of us, the board here, would just go along with what we're doing and moving forward, because I personally feel the unity on this board now is much greater than it ever has. And I would like it to see it move that way, keep moving that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Beatty.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Very well said. I've been a proponent for the legislative form of government for years. Here we have 20 supervisors, some with 11 votes, some with 12, some with 22, some with 32, some with 54. Most county forms of government across the state have a legislative form of government. And what that is, for the people who don't know, is that simply the population of the county divided equally, let me say that again, equally among X amount of supervisors. So Supervisor McGowan, who has 85 votes, would have the same power as, same voting rights as Supervisor Frazier. Now, talk about saving money. We have currently 20 salaries, 20 on this board. It would go down to 9. Let me repeat that. It would go from 20 to 9. All right, and this legislative form of government is going to be a big issue this year, I know, in the Government Ops Committee, because the reality is we need equality. We need equal voices, and we need to save money. So 20 salaries going down to 9 will save a lot of money for the county taxpayers, and it will also create an equal voting rights among all the supervisors. That's why most county governments have the legislative form of government. It makes sense on a number of issues. So, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to have the time to speak to the board. I know it's towards the end of our meeting. I'm going to be as brief as I can. And let me start with, because I had my second COVID shot yesterday. It was Moderna. I'm not sick, but I can feel it. So, but you know, everybody get vaccinated. But I want to go, and I'm not going to talk about the difference between the legislative board and the supervisor board, even though I have a lot of comments, and I'll save that for later. But what I do want to do is talk about the issue of dissent. When there's an issue of dissent about a topic, my experience on this board, it hasn't been long. I'm in my second term, so 3+ years. It's always been graciously accepted that there's dissent. You talk about it. I've always valued losing arguments because somebody had a better argument than I did and better and different experiences. That ability to have these discussions is important to this board. And I think we all feel the same way. So when we get into the discussion about this topic of majority and minority leader, right, it's not an attack upon our leadership. It's about one issue alone, in my mind. And what I deal with is I reflect upon all the discussions that we've had. And I'm confused about our priorities. We've had many discussions and a strong focus on the rules, the law. We need to follow the rules. We need to follow the law. I'm not going to be here to say anything that we should do anything differently. I do agree with Supervisor Conover that any discussion about the rules needs to go to the full board. And it's good that we have this focus on rules and the law. But this matter that we're talking about, to me, is inconsistent with that priority of the rules and the law. What we've heard is that New York State says you cannot pay supervisors unless they're this or that, chair of the board, maybe it's budget, I'm not sure what all the details are, but it's clear. The law states you cannot pay supervisors any more money. We've done it in the past. It was against the law. Our chairwoman brought it to our attention. What did we do? We found another law that we can manipulate to be able to continue to break the law. So we talk about the spirit of the rules and the spirit of the law. This is my issue. What we've done is we've found a way around the law that says you can't pay these supervisors. And when we want to have a debate, we can't have that debate because there's a few, and it doesn't take many, to block this discussion. And I think it's a discussion well worth having, and I support anytime we have another discussion about this, I intend to join in. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Again, this is not an attack on your leadership, your position. That is not my intent. It's this one issue.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. I appreciate that support. Are there other comments before I go to Supervisor Bramer and Supervisor Conover, who have already spoken? Supervisor McDevitt.
Yeah, the thing that bothers me is this full board, other than a very quick vote in January, has really not spoken to the issue of majority and minority leader. We've had an opportunity over the last 2 to 3 months to kind of come to a semi-educated opinion as it relates to that. But today, what we've done, in my opinion, has been very anti-democratic. This board should enable the people that represent the people in this county to specifically vote on the issue involved. Vote on whether this form of government, that being majority and minority leader, is wanted by the elected officials in Warren County. We have not been given that opportunity. And I view that to be anti-democratic. We vote to waive or not waive the rules to prevent the issue to come to the full board, to enable us to talk, to debate, and to vote. So as far as I'm concerned, we don't really have a public record as a legislative body on this issue. So what's going to occur is, unless the full board votes, the issue will not go away. This is coming back next month. It's coming back the month after. It'll come up probably every month this year until this full board makes an educated decision on the issue and votes. So here we go. We're in for more drama. Not good. Not good.
Thank you, Supervisor McDevitt. Other comments and privilege of the floor before I go? Supervisor Conover, then Supervisor Strau, and then Supervisor Bramer has the second question, then Supervisor Conover.
Is it my turn?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, I do take consolation in the fact that the majority of supervisors did see the issue with minority and majority. All right, but let that be an aside for now. And we have spoken at quite some length on the legislative form of county government. You know, that would be very good for Queensbury. We would probably have our own legislator that represents our town. I don't think that the other towns, because each legislative section has to be a population equivalent. So then you're going to have to tie the northern towns, Johnsburg, Thurman, Bolton, Horicon. You're going to have to tie them all together under one legislator. And so they will not have an individual voice as they do now. So Johnsburg, Horicon, they all have their own voices. They have someone that knows their town better than anybody else here. Better than a legislator who would come from one of the other towns, certainly. Then, saving money, if you take a look at the legislative governments, here we have $90,000 salaries. They have their own offices. They got their own staff. They got televisions on the wall. I mean, you know, I think if you look into the legislative form of government, it's not good. Steve Accario, the executive director of the New York State Association of Counties, came and talked to us, and he said, listen, Warren County has a wonderful thing here. We do a lot of things right here in Warren County, from budgeting, from tourism, the list could go on. And that's because of the good workers that we have working for us and a good board of supervisors that represents each community individually. And we do have differences and we do share ideas. And it's not based on partisan politics, but legislative government, good for Queensbury. I don't think it'd be good for anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll, I don't believe you've spoken before.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you for cutting in front of some of my colleagues. A few of you may have been surprised, and a few of you may have been offended by my vote this morning. I just finished in the last few weeks campaigning and getting petitions signed by. Generally, I try to get 4 times the amount of individual signatures that I'm required to get. This year, of course, it's a small amount, but I always try to get 4 times, and I came within, I think, 2 votes of achieving that. I spoke a lot about COVID-19. I spoke a lot about the economy and small businesses because they're also a part of my constituents in the 5th Ward of Glens Falls. I take my marching orders from the residents of Glens Falls 5th Ward, the good people that elect me to serve up here, and the privilege of sitting here. I respect all of my colleagues on this board, engaging in conversations and discussions and debates. But at the end of the day, I take my marching orders from the residents of the 5th Ward. In walking around, I did hear comments. I was surprised to hear comments, but I did hear comments. I actually had a couple who had written a letter to the editor of the Post-Star, and that was printed. So I kind of was able to gauge the response, at least from a few people in the 5th Ward, which was the reason that I voted the way that I did. I was on the fence, and I've spoken about both the pros and cons of this decision. I hope that at least from where I sit, I can spend the majority of my time looking at resolutions, looking at committee notes. I spent too much time last night trying to pretend to be an attorney or understand the Latin that I was reading. Generally, the night before a board meeting, I go over sometimes a couple of times each individual resolution that's going to come forward. Last night, I was watching the evening news and I was still getting through the resolutions because I had gone through a couple of probably maybe 100 pages of legal type of stuff. I understand the importance of all of that, but again, the reason that I ran and the reason that I serve is to serve the people. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you so much. I just want to make a few comments, and then I have some other things that are completely unrelated, if we could get to that. I do want to say that I really hope that this board does support our chair. She has put in an enormous amount of work, and she has been communicating with us and trying to do the best that she possibly can for our county, especially with respect to dealing with our most pressing concern right now, which is the pandemic and getting vaccines out to people. And while I hear what you were saying, Supervisor Wild, that this is not personal, it is pretty hard for me to separate that. That's why I did recuse myself from that vote, because I am a Democrat on a majority Republican board, and it is hard at times to get our position across. And I can tell you there have been many times when I am the sole dissent, or a few Democrats are dissenting, and I don't feel like our voice is heard. So I think that this minority position is important. However, I will continue to do my work as to the best of my ability as a supervisor representing Glens Falls, whether I have a title or not, or whether I have additional compensation as minority leader or not. And the point that I want to make to Supervisor McDevitt is that we did vote. The Board of Supervisors had a vote on the minority and majority issue. And in fact, I remember you wanting to change your vote on that issue, and we have debated it around and around. But I take your point. It's going to continue. If it's going to continue to be an issue for people that they want to bring up month after month, that's your ability as an elected to do so. On the issue of a legislative board, I hear what people are saying about, well, we need, the town supervisor to be there to represent your whole town, really get across your issues and be direct with your community, have that direct connection. Well, guess what? The mayor of Glens Falls does not sit on this board, and Glens Falls can represent itself with the people that we have here. So I find it very disingenuous for people to say we must have the town supervisor on the board. We don't have the, mayor of Glens Falls, one of our biggest and only city in the whole entire county. So I think that when it comes to representing the county as a whole, we should have county legislators who are up here dealing with county issues. And no, Supervisor Stroud, we don't have to pay them $90,000. That's out of the ballpark. This is Warren County. People will serve because they want to be good public servants, and we're here to do our civic duty. That's all I have on that particular issue, if you would allow me to move forward, unless anyone else has other comments.
Well, if I can just go to Supervisor Conover, he's been patiently waiting, and then
Thank
Supervisor Bramer will come back to you. And then
My original point was a lot of energy was put into this by a lot of people in committee to keep this question from coming to the board. This is not the chairwoman's rules. This has nothing to do with the chairperson and the title of the chairperson. These rules are our rules. They're the rules of the board. We are a board of supervisors. The executive power does not lie with the chairperson. The executive power and the legislative, the lawmaking power, lies with the board, us. Now, a significant body of us very significant body of us is thinking, you know what? We did something here that maybe we should change. Now, an enormous amount of energy is going into this on the part of some people to say, no, we disagree. And you know what? They have that right. And I would not deny them that right. But I firmly believe that on questions of the rules of the board, let it come to the board. This is where Peter McDivitt is showing his experience. And then you can exercise your vote. And undoubtedly, you'll probably have your way. But it should come to the board. It should come to the board for a vote. And just to correct something that was said, this never went to committee when it was originally done. We tabled the rules came back, and they were voted upon. We didn't adopt the old rules and then propose this as an amendment. It was all packaged together because, and I don't want to get into the details on this because we were told certain things. Well, this should come to the board. And as far as legislative form of government, John, you're absolutely right. There are those that would turn the northern towns into simply the cash cows of everybody else. And you're absolutely right. And I may be the only person on this board that has served in both a legislative body and an executive body. And here we sit today, not just from our actions, but the history of all actions with a supervisory form of government with one of the lowest tax rates, lowest debt services, one of the highest quality of life anywhere in the state of New York. And especially compared against legislative forms of government, which is just another layer of government. Because you're right, John, you're going to have a legislative body, then you're going to have a county executive, they're going to have a staff, they're going to have everything. Believe me when I tell you that this form of government works very well. It works very well. And it's been an honor serving here with all of you. And those that would change it, well, that's their right to propose that. But I think that there are bigger questions here on that proposal that some of us out in the outlying towns are going to have to deal with. But again, the rules of the board should come to the board. There are rules. They're not one supervisor's rules. Their rules belong to all of us. And if we wish to change our rules, then we should be allowed to change our rules. I mean, this went to a committee. It was kept coming here by 2 votes, two supervisors. That was their right in committee. They had that right to do that. But I really question the application of that authority in terms of denying the board the right to vote on all of its on its rules. And that's why on the other matters I'm being so tenacious, because when it comes to the rules of the board now, I'm going to be very protective. Very protective. You know the old saying, once foolish, right? So that's my position on this. And I'm not telling you how to vote. You all vote your conscience at the appropriate point in time. I'm just trying to say to you, maintain the process. Don't undermine the process. That's the wrong thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Thomas.
Yes. What started out as a way to do the right thing and follow the law with the majority position is basically a stipend position. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think through municipal home rule law, that if this board desires to pay a stipend to the finance chair, vice chair, or the personnel chair, or any other committee member, if a local law is introduced through the municipal home rule law, that this board can do that legally. Now, it may be subject to a referendum. I mean, the people of the county could circulate a petition and put it up to a vote. But to go from there to a legislative board, I think, you know, we're taking one thing and stretching something way out to changing the whole government over two positions that basically we want to pay the personnel chair and we want to pay the finance chair a stipend.
Thank you, Supervisor Thomas. County Administrator Moore.
County law, section 200, lays out the process whereby you can pay supervisors for committee work. It's the second part of that law. The first part of the law is the one that we have referenced several times. It states that all supervisors get the same salary unless they're the chair, the majority leader, or the minority leader. And then the second part of that law lays out a process to pay for committee work, and it involves bringing it to the voters.
Supervisor Thomas.
But the whole point of municipal home rule law is to set up your government the way you want to set it up, the way this body wants to set it up. It's not, we don't have to follow every state law. We can construct our own government here. I mean, as far as who's paid and who's not paid. At least that's my understanding. Because that's the purpose of home rule law.
Any from our county attorney? Did you want to, he's talking specifically about home rule law. Is there anything you want to add at this point? Supervisor Thomas brings up a good point, and perhaps there could be additional research put on that, and we could discuss that certainly in committee, or we're happy to look into it as our county attorney. At this point in time, I certainly appreciate the spirited discussion. I look forward to working with all of you and continuing to have these dialogues. That is exactly as Supervisor McDevitt intends for democracy. At this point in time, though, we will, I'm sure, have privilege from the floor from our public. And then we do have a matter of pending litigation, which is very important to all of us that we're going to have to go into executive session for. But instead of waiting our public wait on that, I would like to ask for privilege of the floor from our public. Supervisor Bramer.
I still had one more thing. It's more of an announcement, so it can wait.
You sure? Okay. Mr. Lehman?
Good afternoon. On YouTube, we have a question from MB Milot asking, does Warren County have a preliminary plan as to how they will spend the $12.5 million from Biden's COVID stimulus bill?
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Mr. Moore spoke to that briefly, but if you just want to reiterate, County Administrator Moore, for that question.
Sure, I can go into slightly more detail here. I felt my report was going on a little bit too long, so I didn't dive into it earlier. Basically the funding amounts, I need to check and see if there's been an update to those. I sent those around a week or so ago. But the allowable expenses right now are in several areas. You can replace lost revenue that you lost as a result of the pandemic. For instance, occupancy tax revenue that was low because our season was off, or sales tax revenue, the same thing that was off. The second area is you can reimburse expenses that were related to COVID. A third area is you can make infrastructure investments that are limited to water, sewer, and broadband. You could also pay premium pay. Some counties, for instance, decided to pay hazard pay to their public safety and public health employees. You could get reimbursed for that if that's a decision that you had made. So that's what we're waiting on the guidance from the U.S. Treasury from. It's very loosely laid out in the legislation, and the legislation states that the United States Treasurer has the authority to promulgate regulation on what qualifies and what doesn't qualify for this funding. That is a process that first and foremost on a loss of revenue and on reimbursement of COVID-related expenses that we'll be going through with the treasurer to rough out what we think will qualify, and then we're going to have to compare that to the guidance, make sure that it does qualify. That'll take a certain amount out of the county's approximately $12.5 million allocation, and then with the remainder of it, we'll have to look at the full universe of how we apply that money, and I would expect that we'll get a stakeholder group together to help us evaluate those options.
Thank you. Additional comments from the public, Mr. Lehman?
Yes, we also have a comment from Gina Mincer saying, everyone appreciates the updated information and guidance provided by Administrator Moore on the gatherings info that was distributed this week. We also have, as I referenced earlier, a comment from Diane Collins referencing the Zero Waste Planning Committee. She says, as a member of the Zero Waste Planning Committee, I've got two announcements of interest. The first is about a bill making its way through the legislature called the Extended Producer Responsibility Act, Senate Bill S7718, Assembly Bill A109790, which shifts the burden of recycling from municipalities to private companies, requiring producers of recyclable goods, packaging waste to arrange for the recycling of their own products. This bill is worth looking into and supporting. The enormous amount of packaging waste generated in New York State affects our carbon footprint and our municipal budgets. Secondly, the second announcement will be of interest to all our municipalities as we consider the potential of creating jobs and reducing municipal solid waste costs by not throwing away repairable and reusable items and materials. The zero waste movement has been sweeping the country and opening doors to entrepreneurs, transforming our throwaway economy. Join the free Zoom webinar, Creating New Jobs and Enterprises Through Zero Waste, on Wednesday, April 7th, 2021 from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Speakers will be four of the country's most respected leaders in the field of reuse and repair. Local economic growth and new jobs are of vital interest to you all. I will send each of you a follow-up email on this event. Thank you for your attention. Diane Collins, Zero Waste Committee. And then I also have an email here from an individual identifying themselves as June Maxim. Let me find that in my email here. In regard to the vote on waiving the rules in regard to Queensbury Supervisor John Strau's attempt to bring to the floor a resolution to eliminate the majority and minority leaders, 4 supervisors voted no: Hogan, McGowan, Diamond, and Sieber, overriding 16 others. This is wrong. The resolution should have been allowed to go to the full board. Sieber has steadfastly blocked this measure. Rachel Sieber should not have voted, as she obviously has a prohibited conflict. In that Bramer and Beatty recused themselves, the threshold should not have been 667 votes. The 225 votes controlled by Sieber, Bramer, and Beatty should have been removed from the 2/3 total required, reducing it to 447, and 603 should have been taken the issue to the floor. This is not democracy. This is a Sieber dictatorship. That is the end of the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. At this point in time, without any other comments for privilege of the floor or announcements, we do have a matter before us. Came out of our personnel meeting this morning. If I could please have a motion to go into executive session. This is for purposes to discuss pending litigation in the case of Warren County versus Laney, or Laney Morgan versus Warren County. That motion is made by Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Bruno. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That motion carries. We'll enter into executive session. This is an FYI.
Everybody knows now, Ben.
I was just trying to cut off anyone, sorry. Tell me when we're good. I just text you, we're ending. No action taken at this point in time. We don't have any other information or items in front of our board. I'd like to request a motion to adjourn. That motion is made by Supervisor Shepler, and that is seconded by Supervisor Bruno. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time this morning.